Hello there, folks. I am Mixion, otherwise known as Mayo, and today for you I have some Lantern Control gameplay. This comes from a Webcam Discord server where I played my Lantern Control deck. In this matchup here, we have Jeskai Control. They won viral, and they are choosing to play first. My deck is kind of a soup pile, I would call it. It plays Spire of Industry and Glimmervoid in order to support Prismatic Ending, as is its kind of Urza main board. I do also run a Boseiju in there. Also runs Academy Ruins. Again, soup pile. Me and my opponent did keep a 7-card hand. My opponent's going to start off on a Scalding Tarn and a pass. This hand, I don't remember too much about it, but I do recall it not having any black sources, so I lead out on Mycosynth into Codex Shredder. I do believe this was a double Urza Saga hand. My opponent on end step fetches with Scalding Tarn, finding a Rogrin Triome. My opponent here island cycles a Lorraine Revealed to grab a Hollowed Fountain, putting it into their hand. Plays a tapped Thundering Falls as land for turn. Surveils to the graveyard and then passes. The glare can be kind of unfortunate looking back at this with me not having any audio to back up the game. But they did surveil a Snapcaster to the graveyard, and here is one of those Urza Sagas I mentioned before. Hitting the board, I filter for a black here to cast Thoughtseize, where we see quite an interesting hand on their side. We see Flage, double Galvanic, double Bolt, and I took the Flage. Taking Flage here definitely seemed like the correct decision for me. I was aware of my 2 sagas in hand. I just played one. I am going to be able to fetch a Grafdigger's Cage to shut off Flages. It is unfortunate to kind of have the Bolt redundancy, and all of those removal spells being in hand does mean that I can no longer utilize Saga constructs, but I don't really care too much about that. I'm a Lantern Control deck. I'm going to do the Lantern Control thing. My opponent moves to their turn, draws a card, and plays Hollowed Fountain, tapped, and then passes the turn. Passing over to me, I'll draw my card, take my Saga. Here I drew my Grafdigger's Cage as my card for turn, which was not in my hand previously. I was planning to fetch it off of Saga, but just drawing it off the top definitely speeds up my process. I then filter for another black mana to Inquisition, see what they draw, and take a Bolt. Otherwise, they drew an Otawara, snatch the Bolt out of their hands, and it will move back to their turn. They'll untap, upkeep, draw. Here I'm happy to have 2 Sagas on the board to be able to name this Otawara if it ever becomes an issue in the future, since I do know that they haven't. But they just play it out as land for turn. Fine by me. I will untap, upkeep, draw, tick up my Sagas, float my colorless instead of making constructs because of all those removal spells in hand. I also don't feel bad going and grabbing more combo here. They did play out their Otawara, so that's no longer a worry with Needle, which is actually just a really safe opening for me to be able to grab a Lantern. I reveal a second Lantern of Insight on the top of my deck. I will then use a floating colorless to play out an additional Codex Shredder. Here, I believe they revealed a counterspell on top of their deck. I just decided to main phase mill it, revealing a land as the next card in their deck, and they scoop it up.